Let me see what my Twitter looks like. Should show streaming. Is it live yet? Live. It says live channels. It should be live on Twitter. Hold on. Let me just. Here come. Okay, it's live now. Okay, amazing. Thank you. Monica, on. Just 1 second. I'm going to go live in a second. Too many cables these days, Monica. It's.
What happened to YouTube?
Yeah. I know. I was on. So I was. I streamed on Pump Fun for 1 day, so I got a bunch of tokens from it, and then yeah. Okay, so I bought a bunch of kit, but let's talk about what you're here to talk about. So I think a lot of the people these days, the kids, they don't know the people they should know, and you're one of them. What's your story? So you were the CEO of Strate, which is South Africa's central securities depository. Then you went on to lead Consensys in South Africa, but also more broadly, contribute a lot early on to financial services, and sort of you were introducing Ethereum to crypto. Sorry, before it was cool. Now it's kind of cool, and everyone wants to do stable coins and whatnot. But I think you were sort of all in on this stuff before it was cool. So thank you so much for everything you've done, and now it seems to be all happening. But before we jump onto that, so why don't you tell me your story? And our listeners.
Okay, so very briefly, I think what's relevant for this discussion is why I fell in love with, crypto and blockchain. It has nothing to do with speculation or making money, or it really was the solution to a massive problem in financial markets, which is corruption and fraud. So one of the my first job was the technical chartered accountant. And the whole idea was to set the audit and accounting standards for the profession in the world and in South Africa. And I love that job because we will ensure that the cowboys in financial markets were taken out. Even though we set standards, the audit failures are still happening, the corruption is still happening. Everything is still a disaster, in my humble opinion, and that's why we had the crisis in 2008. I then left the institute and worked for the World Bank also to try to give a little bit of sense of less corruption in the world, and it couldn't happen. And then I came back from Washington, D.C., and then they asked me if I would convert the South African financial markets from paper, share certificate, paper, to electronic. And I love the project because it gave me an opportunity to once again reduce the fraud in financial markets. I was obsessed with that concept. And even though we created the central securities depository, which kept the register of all the shares that were transacted on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, even though we created incredible risk management principles, even though all that, we still fail. And you know why? Because the banks and the brokers and the issuers and everybody, nobody wanted to give up control. What does it mean? The ideal model was the model that India and China created from the beginning, because they were one of the last ones to create this model. And they could learn from the mistakes of others, which is that the beneficial owner, meaning the real owner of the shares, the shareholder, the beneficial owner, should be in the register. But in most countries in the world, the beneficial owner is not in the register. What's in the register? The register, imagine, that gives legal title to the shareholders, their name does not appear in the register. What appears...
So this register is like a database in a big mainframe computer, right? What is
The
the
register is
register?
supposedly
Right, okay.
is the names of the shareholders that own shares in that company.
So it's the final ledger. It's the final ledger that keeps track of who owns how many shares in, let's say, Robert Leshner Corporation.
But the market didn't allow us to keep the
Yeah.
name of
Okay.
individual shareholder. Just imagine how disempowering that is. It's terrible because when the company goes under, who's the shareholder? Who's the shareholder? The shareholder is the nominee account
Right.
of
Right.
the
Right. Right. Right.
broker or
So
the bank that is holding the shares. They've got the power. Do you know that they got the power to go and
right.
vote at the AGM, not the shareholder? It's a crazy world that we created.
Wait. I thought this was because of proxies,
I
as
know
in,
you need a
shareholders
proxy.
can, minority
Yes.
shareholders can vote
Let's assume
proxies.
you care as a shareholder and you want to vote. Let's assume. Okay. So then you get a proxy from your
Right.
nominee to allow you to vote. Why? You are the shareholder. Why did this market prevent the shareholder from
Right.
voting, from having access to their own name in the register?
I
Why?
think
You know why?
so. I'm gonna, I like to argue. You've known me for a while,
Please
and I like
argue.
to argue.
I
So yeah,
love that.
please go ahead. I'll argue
Yeah.
with you later. Yeah. So if you look at DAO governance,
Yeah.
right, in crypto, then most token holders
Yeah.
never really vote. It's not that they cannot vote. I mean, they just have to click on sign a few things, and then bingo, they're voting on Aave, right, or anything else. But minority token holders don't really want to vote in governance, and it's kind of like the same with securities, as in people. It's not that even when given a chance, you get these proxy letters in the mail in the US, and people don't really want to vote for the most part. I mean, they should have the option to vote, but you're saying that it's not that. I mean, it's not that they don't want to vote; they cannot vote.
They can vote if they go through a very bureaucratic process of getting a proxy. And I'm arguing that shouldn't be the case because the worst part is not the voting. The voting is a red
Okay.
herring. The worst part is the company goes under. The company that is holding your shares, let's say the bank, the broker, and in the register you have the name of the broker, not the name, your name. So until the whole clearing process of liquidation is completed and the audit is done to see who's who in the zoo, then you are still not the owner because in the register is what proves who's the owner in the company. In the register, it shows the name of your intermediary. And we have layers upon layers of intermediaries. Don't think that the broker that says broker
Yeah.
nominee is actually the only layer. Behind the broker nominee, there's another nominee, and it could be another nominee. And it's all hidden. It was done on purpose to hide. So we tried to convince the market to create the beneficial ownership in the register, and the market said no. Okay? So in many countries in the world, that's the case. Very few have, like China and India, that the beneficial owner is
So
registered. So 2008, the crisis happened. Did you know?
yes, that's right.
No, I wanted to tell the story of the terrible crisis in 2008 when it took a year or more, I think much more, for
Yeah,
Lehman
I was
Brothers
there.
books to be reconciled. No? Why? Because they had hidden all these shares in nominees, in different entities, different number, registration
Oh,
numbers.
okay.
All Lehman.
So
No? They were all Lehman, but they were hiding behind all these structures.
really, I thought that was okay. I didn't know that was the case with equities, but I'm sure it was the case in some
Even
countries.
more.
So I remember because I used to deal with interest rate derivatives and FX derivatives and the Japan PRDC and exotics desks. So at that time, I remember that really the CSAs, credit agreements. I think sorting those out took forever, but I didn't know that equities. But I'm sure in certain countries that would have been a problem with
Oh,
kind of really tracking down what the equities
yeah.
exposure
Can you
was.
see my face?
Okay.
Absolute
Right.
skepticism.
But I think the part that I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit is that it was done on purpose to hide, right? I think it was kind of the way my understanding of securities regulation is that there have been a lot of accidents, right? So initially, people used to do paper
Correct.
certificates, and then there has been all kinds of fraud and issues related to balances and tracking who owns what, and then later on, because of those accidents, one there have been accidents. The second is technology has also
Great.
evolved over time, right? So we started with mainframes and batch processing, then we started with like these mini computers, and then we installed like these HP servers and then PCs and whatnot. So technology has evolved. So to some extent, just like blockchain is coming now, part of the reason it's a mess is because as technology has evolved, people have like patched a lot of different solutions. And I think yesterday I saw somebody from Variant Fund, one of the ex BCG consultants, was talking about, okay, look how many there are different types of equity tokens. So there are multiple people tokenizing in different ways. So Kraken is tokenizing in one way, Leshner and Securities want to do native tokenization, which is kind of the right way in my opinion, right? And then and there are lots of people like X stocks and whatnot. People are putting these things in an SPV and tokenizing shares in an SPV. So there are multiple different tokens that represent either the share. No one really knows what the token represents in terms of legal claims and rights. So now people want to create an orchestration layer to figure out how to add all these balances from all these, and then really make a bigger mess than we have without blockchain.
Exactly. No, I don't agree. You know what? What I do agree.
So no, you don't agree?
I
Okay,
do
go ahead.
agree that there is an ideal solution, and if there's a will, there's a way. But because of the market are sometimes not having a good intent, they're going to create a mess. But let me finish explaining.
I mean, people just want to ship something and make money while they can,
That's
right?
a
I think
problem.
that's not so different from traditional finance in
When
the
the
sense
money,
that if you look at Kraken's X stocks, right? And
so when the money god talks,
yeah, go ahead.
the idealism goes out of the window. So what I have to tell you,
Exactly. So you and I come from a bit of an idealistic generation, right? So I think we were sold Don Tapscott, Vitalik, Joe. We were pitched blockchain as a solution to everything.
It's true, and I tell you why. Because when I read Satoshi's paper, it was actually in 2016. I read it for the first time. I started crying actually because my whole life I've been looking for that solution, and the solution that this Satoshi, whoever she is created is so beautiful. He actually tried to say no more intermediaries, fully transparent, immutable ledger. And I'm going to give you a mathematical formula that you won't be able to actually crack, and you're not going to be able to cheat on me. Imagine we have the full audit trail of that Bitcoin ledger. It's so beautiful. As an auditor, I'm an accountant. It's like music to my ears because audits will be done real time, and you won't have to need an auditor come to do checking, of your books. It will be completely detectable immediately if you're committing fraud. And that's why I'm saying if you stick to Satoshi's principles, that he wrote in that paper, then the world will be a better place. But what you say, not everybody believes in the idealism, and if you just want to make money out of this, then you will be able to make money and bastardize what was intended to be a beautiful story.
Right. When we started, right? I think when you, Clark, a bunch of people were doing tokenizing different assets. I think there were a lot of different security token standards being built, and the idea was to put like private shares, private credit, equity, private equity, public listed stocks, everything on a blockchain. But what's the logic for that? I mean, what does that improve? So because blockchains are only capable of gross settlement, right? What's the business case for putting all this stuff on the blockchain?
Why would you need net settlement if you're going to settle real time every time you trade, you settle? That's ridiculous.
Because I want to have.
You want to go and send it to the central securities depository to net so that then 2 days later I can send you back the trading that has been affected? It doesn't make sense. That's why it has to be gross.
But I want.
Gross.
But a lot of liquidity, I would argue, comes from securities lending. So as in, if I want to large blocks and I don't have those blocks in my possession, then I cannot settle gross.
No.
So in order to settle, I just want to borrow shares. So I
That's fine.
buy shares, or I really want to trade shares that I don't even have. So securities lending, it takes time to find shares, and it takes the lending part of it. So, and that kind of improves liquidity, because now I can trade the really big blocks that I don't have. So if in a purely gross settlement scenario, how do I do securities lending? I mean, should I now? You could argue that we shouldn't be doing securities lending. Satoshi doesn't do securities lending, but look at ETH guys do all kinds of lending, right? We have perps, we have perps, we have these looping in DeFi protocols. So lending is fundamental to liquidity. So how do you essentially do securities lending in a purely gross settlement?
Just remember that all these things were created because you couldn't do real-time settlement. It's impossible at this stage unless you use a blockchain type technology. So that's why you have to find other solutions. But if you, as I said, follow Satoshi's principle to the T, then you won't need all these arrangements that is going to make money to people that are benefiting from the inefficiencies of the market. If you eliminate the inefficiencies, you won't need it. Think about it. What are you trying to do? You're trying to make money, or you're trying to settle real time in a blockchain that is immutable, transparent to the world. What are you trying to achieve? Is the money God, or is it the beneficial?
But if I want to borrow off chain,
so
also, but think about it this way, right? So in securities markets, we have central clearing, right? So we rely on central clearing for swaps, but also equities. And historically, I think central clearing seems so whereas crypto markets rely on the liquidations, right? So I think Sam Bankman was pitching liquidations to the CFTC and saying, look, okay, we should move away from central clearing onto liquidations. But when you have these complex derivatives with term structure and whatnot, then and ultimately FTX went down, right? So this whole liquidation business didn't really work. It does work for perps, but it doesn't work for options and full term structure of futures. I don't know, it's debatable. So do you want to get rid of central clearing
for
also?
Equities,
LCH,
yes, of course.
which has kind of reduced so much.
Of course, for equities. Why would I need a central clearing? When I'm the shareholder, I'm buying from you, you buy from me, let's settle. I don't want any intermediaries. Stop it with the intermediaries. And that's what Satoshi said. And the intermediaries were the ones that eventually brought all these.
You're breaking up a little.
Oh, sorry, maybe my Wi-Fi.
You're breaking up a little. Do you want to? I know it's odd for it's your. I think it's the Wi-Fi.
Yes,
you want to turn off video? I can turn off the video also.
Yes, of course. Of course.
You want to turn off video?
Exit
I can turn off video.
Okay, me too. Hold on, let me find the video. Found it. Okay, so in a nutshell, Najid, go back to Satoshi, please. What did he say? No intermediaries. The central clearing is the mother of all intermediaries. Do you know how that works? You transfer the liability to the central clearing. Right. This is crazy. Please, can we go back to Satoshi's principles?
Intermediaries exist because they add some value, right? Like Binance is also an intermediary.
In the traditional financial markets, that the technology couldn't cope with real-time settlement. But if we move to a blockchain technology, then we don't need them. What is this? They just add cost to the market. Ajit, please. You forgot our ideals. What happened to you?
No, it's not an ideal. For me, it's never been ideological, right? I think there were 2-3 years at Consensys when I was fairly ideological, and then I realized that that's not how the world works. And if you look at TradFi and crypto kind of coming together, then now even the Consensys guys are doing digital asset treasuries and getting all these traditional financial institutions to buy our ETH. So the ideals, leaving aside the ideological side of this for a second, right? Because ultimately that's not how the world has shaped up. So okay, I think it's my Wi-Fi. I'm gonna fix this. So that's not how the world has shaped up. But because it looks like incentives drive the world, right? As in, I think efficiency, higher liquidity, those are more important. So I'm not like ideological around this. Reality is that Uniswap is an intermediary. Uniswap's governance is an intermediary. Uniswap's foundation, labs are also intermediaries. They profit quite a bit and have significant influence and, to some extent, control of these decentralized exchanges. Hyperliquid is very controlled, right? So there are various so the ideals. I mean, Bitcoin is one. Even that has certain intermediaries, debatably, but but very little, right? I think Bitcoin is an idealized scenario. So
Would you
so leaving aside, I don't.
no, would you admit?
Sorry, and as soon as you bring credit.
No, I
Sorry, go
wanted to
ahead.
say that if you had to advise a client, buy Bitcoin directly or buy through an intermediary, what would you advise?
I think it depends on the client. So I know you don't want to hear this from me, but if it's if a retail
Yeah,
client, right, and they don't want to
correct.
deal with self custody or kind of get. So this year, for example, I lost 200,000 or whatever that number was to some kind of phishing
No,
hacks, whatnot, right? And I think I probably lost $1
oh
million in
no,
the last several years. It is what it is. I mean, when you make more, you lose more. So yeah, it is really painful. It's traumatic, but I think in crypto, if you deal with self custody, then these things happen, right? And I know people who have like founders and rich people who have lost like
oh
$26 million
wow,
to North Korea and things like that. So these numbers are
sure,
crazy, right? And for some people, like 5,000 is also a lot of money. So self custody is a great option. It's a necessary option to have, but it doesn't work
that's
for everyone. So similarly in securities markets also, right? I think self custody is not the ideal scenario. That's why we have regulated custodians that have so intermediaries do provide some value.
that's true.
Don't you
No, I
agree?
agree. There's absolutely, especially custodians. Wow, because even I get really scared when I transfer from a trading platform to a custody, a cold wallet is super scary. So yes, I agree. I love someone else to look after me. Yeah,
Right. So now I have sold you on
yeah, you have.
custodians.
Admit.
Now I have sold you
Yes,
custodians, and I have sold you
yes,
ETFs
I
because
get it.
exchange
Yeah,
traded
and
funds like
also,
closed-ended
yeah,
BlackRock funds are the right answer for
yeah,
grandma
agree.
who has a brokerage account and has considerable protections under the Securities and
Yeah,
Exchange Act.
agree.
So now I'm going to sell you
Yeah,
BlackRock.
no, okay, let me breathe. No, no, you've gone too far. No, I did. Come on. It's good for certain people, but not for the retailers that know what they're doing. Come on, really?
Okay. Okay, you can turn your camera back on.
Okay,
I think I've
okay,
sorted the
okay. You
Wi-Fi.
make me laugh.
So now I represent Goldman
Oh
Sachs on this
no,
chart. So
please, please.
is your camera on? Okay, amazing. So now I represent Goldman Sachs, where our boss, Mr. Lubin,
I
used to
know.
work, and I think some of the Ondo finance guys, and I think Robert.
Ah, you're funny. Wait, what happened? We lost you. Wi-Fi. So the Wi-Fi is gone. I don't know. Let me just cut. Boy, what happened? Boy, I lost him.
was, I think, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well. I had to switch because I lost you. Do you think I should switch back to the video?
Yeah, you should switch it back on. My son is messing around with the Wi-Fi router.
Okay.
I think don't close the door. Okay.
Oh yeah. He's gonna get into trouble. So funny.
Okay. You see how it is having. Newton had a dog called Diamond, and he
Yes.
burnt all of Newton's work.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So Newton did not have children, but he had a dog. So I don't have a dog. I have children. So yeah. All right. So now I can hear you.
Yeah.
I think now everyone can hear you. So can you hear me again?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Let me just. Okay, what's going on here?
You're clearly going to audit this or edit.
Right. So I managed to, yes, it's live. We'll clip it out. It's very entertaining. So thank you for helping me figure this out. Okay. I hope you're into that. So I was saying now, look, Bitcoin is an idealized system. Bitcoin essentially assumes there is never going to be any credit or lending, right? So your only credit is to the network, and then everything else is, but that's not kind of how Ethereum works, right? Ethereum has a lot of, I think Vitalik just came out with an article on low risk DeFi. And I think that was also the subject of debate. But lending, as soon as you bring in lending into the system, then you kind of end up with some version of settlement that's not gross, right? Like Aave relies on liquidations, perhaps rely on liquidation. So there is kind of this central intermediary, which is a smart contract, but that is kind of taking care of settlement, no?
But remember, smart contracts are not humans. Okay, so we don't want anybody human-like to interfere. And smart contracts were one of the best inventions that were brought to the world. Especially.
But the key to a smart contract can be controlled by a human, right? So in that case, like a smart contract is just like a electricity switch controlled by a button, by a human.
Yes, but it's code. We rely on code, and code is king, and all those good things that are transparent and audited, and hopefully not manipulated by humans too much. So really, it's a step forward in the evolution of humans in financial.
Yeah, at least it makes things possible.
Really
that I will
like
agree.
magic.
I tend to, after 10 years, I tend to be quite skeptical and sometimes even slightly cynical about a bunch of these things that Don Tapscott promised us. But okay, so at least in theory, it's possible for a system with smart contracts, once you burn or kind of decentralize the control of the contract enough. So okay, fine. So you can essentially do a bunch of these things. So your entire CSD can be a smart contract, or Gnosis, let's say, as a custodian is a smart contract. So you can remove more and more of these human intermediaries that you have to trust, and you start to rely on systems, right? And which are autonomous. Okay, so okay, fair enough. So you're right. Oh no, absolutely. That's why I'm here, right? I mean, as skeptical as I am of where DeFi is at, and how many things need to be fixed. The dream is still very much real. So okay. So now, so let's say so now tokenization, right? So tokenization, what exactly is it? When we are tokenizing securities, what are we doing?
As you know, I was part of the second stage of eliminating paper share certificates from the stock exchange. So before I started at Strate, every transaction required an actual share certificate with your name that got delivered by a messenger to the owner. You are now the proud owner of this share certificate. Imagine, it took 2 weeks for settlement to take place. In most markets, 2 weeks. But South Africa was really bad, really, really bad. We were categorized at a certain point in 1998 as the worst emerging market, worse than Russia and Venezuela. Oh my God, it was so embarrassing. Because it took us 2 weeks to enable a buyer and a seller to conclude a transaction. That's when I came in, and they motivated me to be the CEO of this company, Strate, that is the central securities depository, which we eliminated all the paper in the market, and we went completely what was called at that time, it was called dematerialization. Very
Monica?
slowly. Yeah? Yes? I'm not here? Why? Did you lose me? Hello? Why? I lost you again. Why did I lose you again? I lost you, friend. Oh, where are you? Okay.
Hello?
Yes, hello. I can hear you, but nothing
Hello,
else.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, eh?
Yeah. Let's turn off your camera
Okay.
again.
Yeah.
What you said is quite a bit more
Yeah.
important. Yeah. Yeah, then because I think the Wi-Fi is either on my side or
Yeah.
your side.
Agreed. Shall I repeat this? It's important.
Okay, great. My son has been. Yeah. Please,
Okay,
that was quite
so
important.
yeah, so the evolution of the financial markets. It starts that everybody, because the technology, there was no technology to cope. Every single shareholder had to get a share certificate, an actual piece of paper with their name written in this piece of paper and delivered by messengers. And sometimes the messengers that were delivering the checks for payment would meet in the streets and swap. In South Africa, this is real. They will swap those share certificates and the checks under a bridge because they were both going to the same client. So they thought, instead of now going to the client, I'll give you this, you give me that, and I save the trip. Imagine, sometimes those motorbikes had accidents and the share certificates were all over the street. This is real title. One share certificate, one piece of paper was real title. It gave you the right to say, I'm the shareholder in that company. Imagine the disaster that it was. So they asked me to come in, eliminate all the share certificates, and go completely electronic. Do you know that even today, DTCC still holds paper because, and they did not want to dematerialize. It's called dematerialization. It's the concept that you take all the shares in your vault, the share certificates in your vault, you burn them, and you only have reliance on an electronic record. DTCC had a flood, I think it was a Hurricane Sandy, that flooded their vault. Imagine all that paper got wet. Imagine the disaster, because that, yeah, it was damaged. So,
And that's not even so long
yeah,
ago.
and they realized that they had to then move to dematerialization because of the risk of Sandy, of another flood. But when we implemented dematerialization, they weren't saying, I'm not going to move to dematerialization. The Swiss had a vault under a mountain, and it was one of the most secure vaults, and still had paper until they decided that was ridiculous. Imagine the cost of maintaining this vault under a mountain, So what I'm trying to say is that the most developed traditional stock markets were the last one to implement many solutions, like the last CSDs we created was China and India, and they went for the best. They went for full dematerialization, beneficial ownership on register. They had the best because the technology at that time would allow them to do the best. But when you are the first one to implement, it's very difficult with legacy systems to implement the best technology. So what I'm trying to get at eventually is that once we dematerialize all the shares, it's still 3 days for settlement. It's still massive amounts of intermediaries. It's still very inefficient and lots of risk. So the reality is that the only solution is what Satoshi is saying, is that give up this traditional, very clunky, very antiquated method of settling in financial markets mainly equities, which is the highest volume of transactions, more than bonds and more than money markets, and therefore give that up and move to what Satoshi wanted, which is a blockchain solution with real-time settlement. And that's why I love what NASDAQ has announced to say, we will maintain the traditional, but for those that want to move to real-time settlement, no intermediaries, lower costs, more efficiencies, come to me and I will accommodate you. And that is the matter.
So now this thing only works if we do native tokenization, right? If we issue, let's say, if the whole thing IPOs on
Yes,
the
yes.
blockchain, right? So, for example, what has happened in the past is that people tokenize in a very indirect manner, and you put a bunch of shares in, let's say, Oracle in an SPV. Like this other company that buys a bunch of Oracle shares, and instead of tokenizing Oracle shares, you're essentially getting tokens in this SPV, which is a whole other company. And then, if this company goes under and kind of rugs the shares, or does something with them, like an offshore entity or something, then you don't really get the benefit of tokenization. So you kind of have to do native, which is yeah. So how close do you think we are? I mean, what have you heard more recently as to how close?
I
Are you hearing anything good? You saw this
Oh my
announcement,
God,
right?
how do I answer that question without being rude to my ex-colleagues? Oh,
No, don't be rude. Be rude. Speak your mind. We have nothing to
okay, so
lose.
in reality,
You
already
already
made
made
it. No,
it.
I don't have anything to lose. I actually don't care. And the truth be told, I have no filter. It's
Exactly.
terrible, but I lost the filter somewhere along the way.
Good. Have no filter.
Yeah,
We
no,
like it that
you
way.
and I, we
That's
don't
right.
we don't have filters. Let's be honest. Yeah,
Yeah. No filter. I still have to do it
yeah,
because I
that's
need a
true.
job
You lost $1
sometimes, but
million.
you don't.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, it's better to lose a
Yeah.
million, right?
So, friend,
Right, than to not have
just
them in the first
imagine
place,
the
right?
infrastructure that has been created over the years. I started dematerialization in 1998. So that means all the markets in the world started dematerialization around that time, and everybody went and created all these intermediaries. And that means a whole CSD infrastructure in every country. I was the vice chair of the World Federation of CSDs. I was the vice chair of the African AMIDA, which is the Middle East, Africa and Middle East Central Securities Depository. And all of these CSDs exist in every country, and therefore employees, infrastructure, technology that you won't need, because the CSD, what it does is that it's able to settle after 3 or 2 days, and you need a CSD for that. But if you have real-time settlement, why would you need a CSD? So who's going to quickly give all that infrastructure up?
Mm-hmm.
When we created dematerialization, that meant no shares. Do you know that there's still shares in most countries? And the registrars, the transfer agents that we thought we would eliminate, they still exist. Why? Because some shareholders do not want to give up the share certificate under the mattress. Really, people? And you know what happens when you do that? The company goes under, and then you don't have the ability to trace who's the real shareholder. And then you're bound to lose those shares under your mattress, because that company would have changed identity many, many times, like hostile takeovers or other reasons. So the
Mm-hmm.
name that they have on the share certificate doesn't match with the reality of that company. That company in that name doesn't exist anymore. So someone will have to do an audit to verify who is truly that company, and are you truly the shareholder? And remember my story when I started? Your name is not on the register, it's in a nominee. What happens if that nominee went under? Who's going to prove that you're still the shareholder because you're holding a share certificate? When we created Strate, we gave the opportunity for every shareholder to clean, because there was a lot of fraud, to clean those shares that were fraudulent, and many refused. So what they're holding under the mattress could be a dud, could be something that's fake, and when they want to claim, they might not be able to claim. So do you understand the mess that has been created? And people are not going to give up this so quickly. And that's why what NASDAQ did is the right thing, which is to say, we'll give you an option. You can carry on with traditional, which could be a mess, and intermediaries and costly and blah, blah, blah. Or you can move to this new world order, which you will buy and sell equities real time, no intermediaries, no cost, free. You can use crypto, you can use anything to settle. That is magic. That we have at least one country.
But I mean, so I'm gonna argue with you again. So fine, we do native tokenization. Yeah, but the real world, like that security is more than it's a very complicated. You have stock splits, and you have all these corporate actions that need to be processed, and all of that stuff need to be paid through custodians and whatnot. So part of the complexity in securities markets and settlement comes from the corporate actions processing, and there's quite a bit of process around it, costs around it, whatnot. But I mean, and implementing all of those behaviors on a blockchain has proven quite difficult in the last several years. I mean, and if you look at the reality as of today, at least, right? I mean, I know the vision is beautiful, but ERC20 tokens seem to dominate, and ERC20 is not does not have much, right? It's just a ledger of balances. So while in theory, I think all of these things can be done on a blockchain. As of today, a bunch of these things are incredibly difficult to implement, especially like corporate actions.
I need to disagree with
processing.
you again. No, no, I don't agree with you. My husband says that I argue with everybody. I do. Okay, and I'm sorry. You've forgotten that you've got.
That's the best part. Trust me.
You've forgotten that there's the concept.
I'm getting older now, so right.
Small contracts.
Yeah.
You know how easy.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, look, I'm just saying.
With smart contracts, you can do a corporate action. So simple.
I mean, so
we have overcomplicated.
But why has no one done it? I mean, stock splits, yeah, sure, you can in theory. So we had all these tokens stand. All we have is ERC20. Why is that?
We will evolve to ensure that we will do corporate actions in the blockchain. I'm sure you read a lot about how everybody. Wait, let me finish. Where everybody's trying to now use the collateral, collateral that is very used in this market.
Right.
The tokenizing collateral. Why? Because collateral is very inefficient in traditional markets, and that has been huge in terms of the evolvement. Deutsche Börse, Clearstream, Euroclear, the biggest CSDs in the world, have realized that for collateral, smart contracts is the best way to go, and they're now moving to tokenize this.
Yeah. That I remember Jens's project. Right? I think Jens, our common friend.
If you embrace blockchain, I promise you, this market will completely change. And you know why it has to change? Because the problem with intermediaries is that not only is costly, it prevents the man in the street to be able to access equity markets. And that's what Robinhood is doing. I think it's amazing. That is enabling the little people to also be part of the stock exchange. Because these requirements that you have to be knowledgeable and you have to have a lot of money to buy on the exchange, that is leaving a lot of people out of the market. And that is completely unfair. So really what Robinhood is doing, I love.
Okay, so thank you for restoring my faith in this thing. Yes. I think part of the challenge is that this technology is very young, and I think Ethereum has been around only 10 years, whereas if you look at AI, we've had some sort of AI since Alan Turing at least, and now I think it's kind of exploded in the last few years. And if you go back like 10 years, people were complaining about AI as well, right? They were like, oh, neural networks, we were promised self-driving cars, where is it? So I mean, but Ethereum is okay. Now I'm going to hurt your feelings. So Ethereum is kind of slow and expensive.
Yes, right? But wait.
And Solana is cheaper and faster.
Yes, but give me the but.
Aptos is even cheaper and even faster. Sui is quite cheap and fast. So what are your thoughts on all these newer, faster blockchains that are probably closer to your to your dream
You know
than
the answer.
Ethereum?
Come on, you tried to get me like to get upset because I love Ethereum.
Yes,
But
yes,
you're not going
yes.
to get me upset because Consensys, creator of Ethereum, they are fully aware of this. So what did they launch a week ago? Linear. Have you heard about Linear?
That's correct.
Yes, to talk to people
Yes,
about it.
yes, yes.
You're the expert. You're the expert. So we recognize this. So we went layer 2, huge improvement on everything that Ethereum couldn't do. But Ethereum is like the layer. It's like your foundation, and then we built on top to improve on the things that Ethereum wasn't meant to do. And that.
But why would you do that if you can do? I mean, because layer twos are relatively centralized, right? Why would you do that if you can do it on Solana in a much faster, cheaper way?
Okay, I'll wait for.
Without going through any of the centralized
Okay, I'm not
sequencer
going to
stuff.
answer that.
Because your dream was to
That's
have no
true.
intermediaries. Now Coinbase is blockchain. Coinbase
Yes.
is an intermediary.
Yes.
Consensys as a blockchain,
Yes,
they are
that's
an
true.
intermediary. So why go through Ethereum if it brings intermediaries? If you can go through Solana with just their proof of stake validators.
You know what?
I'm being naughty, you know that, but
I'm not going to answer that.
So I'm being a bit
You
naughty
are
here,
very,
but
very naughty,
go
and
ahead.
I'm not going to fall for it. Okay.
Go ahead.
No comment.
Go ahead. I like
can
to
say
argue
no
both
comment.
sides. So, what are your thoughts
Can
on
I
where
say
we're
no
going
comment?
with this?
We're just having fun. Yeah.
No, you cannot say no comment. Not you. Only people in full-time jobs can say things like no comment because of out of respect for HR, legal, and their boss.
No. I'm a Consensys fan.
Right. Okay. Yes. Aren't we? We are both. I think I'm a big, huge
Yes.
Vitalik fan, right? And I think Joe fan, but I'm also a Toli and Toli Anatoli fan, and I think I'm a fan of all the
Me
builders who
too.
kind of
Me too.
continued on from where Vitalik
Amazing.
has
Yeah.
has brought us. So yeah, okay. I think we should do a part 2 of this. I'll send you questions in advance, right? I know you have to go now, and I'll get much better Wi-Fi
Yeah, sure.
next time, and I'll ask. And yeah, so any tell me what else. Wait, one more thing. So there was this huge announcement
Yes.
from Nasdaq recently, right? I think, and in the US now the regulation, because see when we did Nasdaq Link and a bunch of these other tokenization, I think you were doing some work with the Israeli Stock Exchange. So and then I remember you and Saibas, and I think you're probably the only person I know in the world who can hug boring bankers. So we should talk about that in a follow up when I have better network. But what are your thoughts on the latest Nasdaq announcement and what they're trying to do by recognizing on-chain tokenized securities as?
I promise you,
much.
when I read the announcement, my heart, I promise you, I stopped breathing for a minute, saying, thank you, God, because this is what I said in 2017 when I left Strate. I told them this was going to happen, and of course they didn't believe me. And you know what? I said to them, your biggest risk is of not transforming is that the issuers, the listed companies, will leave the stock exchange. In 2017, there was around 650 listed companies on the stock exchange in Johannesburg. Now there's less than 220. So I predicted this was going to happen. And therefore, I thought, God, thank you for allowing me to live this long to see this happening. I think it's amazing, and I congratulate them. That's all I have to say. Yeah.
And thank you for bringing us this far and pushing it in the very early days, because when someone like you speaks to these people, you have credibility. You come from their world, and you kind of done the work on the ground in the old system. So when you say things, I think it has a lot of credibility. So, well, first of all, apologies for the bad tech connection. Also, thank you so much for making the time today. I'll send out some notes.
Thank you, Ajit. It's been such a pleasure to chat to you. I love talking to you. I always laugh so much. I hope the audience will laugh with us. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Moni.
Really appreciate it. Bye. See you soon. Bye.